Relevant Recruiter Group, what's up? And thank you for being patient. We had some fun technical difficulties, and I hope you guys are having a happy Friday. This is Donnie Gupton, and today I've got a fantastic guest. Today I've got Suzanne Justice joining me from Blake Ryan Consulting. Suzanne, thank you so much for joining me today. Happy to have you on the show.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. Well, let's just start out with some of this fun stuff, Suzanne. Where are you located right now? What's going on that's fun in the personal life?
We are actually down in Newport Coast, California right now. So we are having some amazing sunshine, which is great. So it's nice to be able to go outside when you're quarantined, at least to go outside. We have a private pool, which is nice. The kids love it. We have a 3.5-year-old and a 18-month-old. So my husband's actually down there at the beach with our daughter right now while I'm doing this.
Nice. Perfect. So Newport Beach, how long have you lived down there?
We came down here in April. So it was an interesting time. You know, everything was just going into lockdown. We were concerned that we weren't going to be able to leave Washington because they were talking about closing the borders. And, you know, we had the conversation of what if you get stopped somewhere and get stuck. And so luckily we made it.
Yeah, that's crazy. Moving in the middle of the pandemic, I did the same thing, not hopping states, but I just moved myself. We just moved to another town over. And I don't know if you saw this or not with your move, but we finally just got our couches about 2.5 months later, just because everything was on back order.
Oh my gosh.
So we ended up getting some new furniture. So our couches, our appliances, everything was like a month or two out. It's pretty crazy.
Mm-hmm. We actually, that's funny. We ordered a couch when we got down here, and it took about, gosh, I want to say 13 weeks to get. And then as soon as they moved it in, the movers hit it up against our gate, and it was a white couch, of course. And so they got black stuff all over it, and we had to send it back, and then they wanted us to wait another 20 weeks to get it. It was just, just crazy with everything going on.
Yeah, nuts. So you've got it, you said a 3-year-old and an 18-month-old?
Yep, our son he'll be 4 in March, and our daughter will be 2 in February. So very cool. Their birthdays are 3 weeks apart.
Very cool. Yeah, I've got a 17-month-old plus 4 others that are older, so I know the pain of that age and the joy. It's such a fun age.
Yes.
You know, we're at that where they're just starting to talk and all the gibberish, and you know they haven't really become crazy yet. So.
Well, it's funny. She's like a daredevil. She's not afraid of anything. Today, I heard her in her room, and I went in there, and she climbed on her dresser, and she's just sitting there like, "Hey guys, you know, this is great." But yeah, it's funny to see their little personalities come out, and she's just so sassy, but just so sweet at the same time. So
it's such a cool, precious age, for sure. So those of you that are listening in right now, we're with Suzanne Justice from Blake Ryan Consulting. If you can hear us, just give us a hi. Make sure that you can hear what we've got going on. And feel free to ask any questions of Suzanne as we get going here. But Suzanne, let's start talking about your journey. I mean, how did you get into the staffing and recruiting space?
So, you know, I kind of fell into it, to be honest with you. I was, it's funny, my husband now, we dated in high school and were engaged when I was 21 and he was 23, and then we split up. And so I decided to move to San Diego. You know, typical story. I just packed my car. I had no job, nowhere to live. I was just going to make it on my own. So my dad drove me down, and then I literally dropped him off at the airport that night, and he left and went back up to Seattle. But I lived there for about 3.5 years, and then my little sister was starting high school, so I wanted to move home. And I had my real estate license because that's what my family does. My mom and dad have been real estate brokers forever. And so I was doing real estate with my mom, but I wanted to get a part-time job. So I applied and got a part-time job as a receptionist at a dental staffing company. And 2 weeks after being there, their hygiene recruiter left. And I'd been kind of watching everything, and I was interested in it. So I went to the owner and said, hey, you know, I think I'd be really good at this. I'm really interested. And she said, all right, well, let's give it a shot. And she gave me an opportunity, and I grew their business to the most revenue they've ever seen in that department. And that's how I essentially started my staffing career. So it was purely happenstance.
Nice. And that was, you know, don't want to date you here, but that was a couple years back, right?
Yeah, 2006 to be exact. Yeah.
Very cool. And so now you've started, you know, as you evolved in that role, working for somebody else, you know, where did you ultimately, you know, find yourself kind of like topping out at, so to speak?
I
Like,
think,
where did you find yourself kind of like where you realized that this career was going to kind of be limited as working for somebody else?
I really got to a point, I think, in the last, probably I'd say 3 to 4 years of working for big corporations and then, a smaller corporation. I just got to a point where, I realized how transactional that staffing had become. And it was almost like staffing was becoming a bad word when you talk to clients, because they were so used to these companies who all they tried to do was just fill the seat, move on to the next rec, make as much money as possible, whether it's, offering candidates benefits but giving them a lower pay rate, or doing higher markups. I couldn't believe some of the companies, they were charging 100% markups. I've never seen anything like it. So it just really, they lost that relationship piece of it, and I decided, this just is not how I want to do business. And for me, it's always been relationship driven, and that's where I just got to the point where I said, I'm just gonna, I'm gonna do this on my own, and I'm gonna do it the way I want to do it.
Right. And so you took the leap to go out on your own about 2 years ago, correct?
Yes, 2 years in December. Yep. It went by fast. I can't believe it.
Yeah. Yeah. So what were some of the biggest differences and biggest challenges that you kind of were faced with, kind of becoming from the employee to now the entrepreneur and the owner of the business?
I think the biggest thing that I found is, when you're in a managerial role and you're running P&Ls and you're running multiple teams and you're doing all the payroll, you don't realize what goes on behind the scenes as far as how payroll's getting paid, or, how you pay for the different programs you're using, or the software, or IT, so there's a lot more that goes into that than you realize. And that was, I wouldn't say it was a huge hurdle, but it was a big kind of eye-opening experience for me. I was completely self-funded, so I didn't have any backing or anything like that. We just, used what we had and pushed through to make everything work. And so we had a really great year last year, which I was really excited about, and we exceeded a budget goal I'd set for myself. So we thought we were going to kill it this year, and then COVID hit.
Honestly, yeah.
I'm just happy that, we've been able to maintain. I can keep my team, because that's always been the most important thing too, is, keeping my team going and making sure that I don't have to, lay them off or, have them go find another job. Yeah,
absolutely. So how big is your team now?
Right now we have about 11 internal employees, including myself. So we have recruiters, staffing consultants. I have my operations supervisor. We have some interns, which we just brought in, which are amazing. So they're sourcing interns to help, because we are starting to get pretty busy, which is fantastic. I'm so excited about. And so we have about 11 total right now.
That's great. And you have actual office, brick and mortar locations, and you have 3 locations, correct?
We do. So our corporate office is in Bellevue, Washington, and then we have Newport Beach, California, and we just opened Austin, Texas a few months ago.
Very cool. That's exciting as heck. Exciting as heck. So you're in the middle of a pandemic, you're moving, you're expanding your business. Not anything going on with an 18-month-old as well and a 3-year-old.
No.
That's a hell of a busy life right there. That's a hell of a busy life right there. That's awesome. So tell us, I know the story about your how you came up with the company name, but tell us a little bit about that.
So when I decided I was going to start my business. I was in my living room, and my husband and I, of course, talked about it, and he has been so amazing. He's like, I support you 100%, just do it. And so I wanted to really think of a name that was meaningful and something that also sounded kind of cool. I always say hip, which I feel like dates me too, but something that was catchy, but, meaningful. And so my daughter's name is Blake Ryan. And so I thought, that sounds like a really great, kind of creative, because we do creative and marketing. So I thought that was fun. But then it was also something that kind of catches and you can remember. And so that's how I came up with it. And I get the question a lot, do you think that when your son gets older, he's going to be upset that he doesn't have something named after him? Which clearly we didn't think about when we did this. Right. Now we're like, well, maybe we can find some type of division or something we can name after Jax. I don't know.
Yeah, no, you're going to be starting a whole nother company, or you're going to have a whole other.
I know, right?
That's funny. That's cool though. That's really inspiring, and great way to come up with the name. And do you ever get any comments from your clients about that? I mean, obviously they don't know that story probably until you tell it, but.
You know, it's funny because a lot of people ask, how did you come up with that name? And then I tell them, and they tell me how they think that's so great. And they're like, oh, everyone goes, oh.
Yeah.
But you know, a lot of this, and the main reason when I started my business, my goal is to have a legacy and something I can leave to my children. And so to me, it means a lot, and I wanted it all around to be super meaningful. So
Yeah, that's great. That's fantastic. So, you know, one of the things we were talking about a couple of weeks ago, you know, leading up to this interview here is, you know, how you've been able to be flexible during this time of COVID, you know, and how you feel that's really kind of helped to your expansion and growth, you know, in the middle of this pandemic. I mean, can you shed a little light on what you mean by that and how you've been flexible with the clients and see how maybe that can impact some other people that are listening?
yeah, absolutely. So we've really, I mean, our flexibility has just been around our goal of, one, maintaining long-term relationships with our clients, and two, really fitting and molding into what their business is needing at the moment, versus saying, you know, this is our business model, this is how we do it, we need you to do it the way we do it. And so we've been flexible around contract terms, we've been flexible around pricing, we've been flexible around the way that we're doing interviews, the way that we're communicating. I mean, really anything they need. However, we've never dropped the service level. And that's a big deal, because, you know, there is a saying, well, you got what you pay for. And yes, that's true to a certain extent. However, you can still really manage to try to come to a term that'll work for both parties, and also keep that high level of service and that high expectation there.
Yeah. That's excellent. So how has it been, you know, like, you have any examples of clients that you know, the flexibility has actually led to them continuing to move forward with you, or they were maybe considering pausing?
Yeah, so we actually had one of my favorite experiences was in staffing. A lot of times, you know, when we're looking for new business, we'll do what we call ad calls. So we did an ad call, and it's a job posting where they're looking for somebody. We'll call that company and just introduce who we are and let them know we're around. And so we were doing that, and I came across an organization called the Sophia Way, and they're a nonprofit organization, and they help women and children who are homeless get back on their feet. And so they had a posting for an accounting role. I talked to their director there. She was telling me how, you know, they've had a really tough time filling it. It's been months and months, but she said, yeah, I'm really sorry, we can't afford to work with you. We don't have a budget for hiring. And I said, of course, no problem. You know, let me know if you have any other questions. And I kind of sat on it for a little while, probably honestly like 15 minutes. And then I got back to her and I said, you know what? I love what you do. It's so important to us to, you know, not only be flexible, but support our community. So we'll go ahead and do this for you pro bono. And she was so excited, and we found them a fantastic candidate. They love her. And it was really nice because not only did we help fill their need and do it just basically because we want to help and to find a long-term partner, but then they actually asked me to be on one of their committees, which I thought was really amazing. So, yeah, so it's a great way. Again, you know, it's always good to be flexible, to help when you can, because you never know what you're going to get out of it in the long run as well.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's also like an indirect way for you to be able to build your brand and build your business, you know. Not that you want to be doing a bunch of pro bono searches all the time, but, you know, that whole reciprocity comes around, and yeah, I mean, that's awesome, especially when you're doing things that are going to really impact, you know, the heart of the community, which is obviously every community across the world has been affected with everything going on, you know. So
absolutely. You know, and I try to look at it from a standpoint of, we're a small, you know, we're certified women-owned small business, and I would hope that somebody would want to help me at some point if I ever needed it. So I always like to take that approach of it. You know, it's funny because I was talking to Jeff last night about that, and we were talking about my car needing brake pads or something. And I said, well, there's this mom and pop shop down the street that only works on European cars. And he's like, oh, well, you know, they might be more expensive because they're small. And I said, yeah, but, you know, I feel like because we're a small business, we should be supporting these other businesses like that.
Yep.
So I love doing stuff like that. I think it's super important that everybody, like you said, in all communities just pitches in and tries to help out as much as possible, especially during what's going on right now.
Yeah. Well, when you look at it, no matter what, you know, no matter trying to figure out the reason why, there's a couple big corporations that have been able to stay open this entire time and pad their pockets, while all of these small and mom and pop shops are having to jump through hoops, especially here in California. It's ridiculous, the regulations, and, you know, it's tough to survive. So that's a great way to give back to the community. And I'm the same way. I like to work with the smaller guys locally. But you know, there's always that challenge of that quick Amazon order too, you know? So yeah, but that's really cool. So from the recruiting side of things, I mean, what do you really feel like, you know, within the industry, if you could fix one thing, I mean, what would that one thing be, you know, that you feel is kind of broken with recruiting right now?
You know, I think the biggest thing that, and I'm sure if you go on LinkedIn, because I feel like, I don't know what is going on, but I feel like LinkedIn is the new Facebook, where everyone's grievances are just on LinkedIn now. But right. I think a lot of it, and probably a lot of the frustration too, stems from so many people being furloughed and whatnot. But you find that there's a lot of, I guess, not enough communication in the recruiting process, especially with big corporations. I get the frustration on the side of the candidates. And I try to, you know, tell candidates, please try to understand as well that they have such a huge department. You know, they probably have multiple layers trying to figure out who's they're going to interview, et cetera. But I think that as an industry in general, I think that's something we could do better. I think it's really tough for candidates to sit and not hear back from companies or recruiters or anybody and just hope, you know, that their resume isn't going into some black hole, which honestly is what I tell a lot of candidates, and one of the reasons it's great to work with companies like us, because we have that direct communication versus applying on Indeed and waiting, you know, 3 or 4 weeks to find out either the job's been filled or they didn't choose to move forward with you, that kind of a thing. Excuse me, but I think that also too goes back to the building relationship piece of it. You know, you really need to build relationships with your candidates, long-term relationships. And, you know, that's our goal at all times. And, you know, I just had a couple candidates reach out to me and refer people to me that I worked with a year and a half ago. I had this candidate I worked with, I placed him, gosh, I want to say I placed him 6 years ago maybe. And he texted me randomly like 3 months ago. I haven't talked to him since I placed him. And he said, hey, you know, I don't know if you remember me, but I just wanted to reach out and say, I really hope you and your family are doing well during the pandemic. And I said, of course I remember you. And I said, oh, I placed you at XYZ company. And he said, yeah. He said, I really hope you understand, you know, how much you helped me and my family. And so I just wanted to reach out to you and make sure that you guys were okay too. And I thought, you know, this is why I do what I do. This is why I love this industry, you know, because you really are helping people. But you have to take that time to build that relationship and follow up and really be a partner with them. Yeah.
You know, and I hear that so much. It's kind of the lack of feedback in communication on the candidate side. And then you also get that from prospective clients that kind of treat you the same way, where you don't know the feedback and things like that. And it's definitely a common, you know, I would say pain on both ends of the spectrum, both from obviously first and foremost the candidate, but then second, from the way clients are communicating with external recruiters and things like that. And I think there's a lot of opportunity. And you know, one of the things that is, you know, unfortunate about this industry is that there are so many recruiters, I refer to them as more transactional, that are just, everything is about making the dollar. It's not about the relationship. It's not about putting the right person in the right seat. It's just, how fast can I get to the money? I mean, how do you really differentiate your firm from the next, you know, so that your clients and candidates know that you're not that?
You know, it's unfortunate in that the industry has gone that way, because, you know, when I learned staffing, that's not how it was. It was all relationship built. And the goal was, especially on the sales side of it, is that the longer you build that relationship, the more business you're going to get, the more referrals you're going to get, and people do business with people they like, right? So, so for us, it really is making sure that we are following up with people. It's making sure that we let our clients know too, hey, if you're looking for a specific position and I'm having a conversation with you and I'm going over the job description, being that I've done this for 14 years, if I don't think that's what you're really looking for, it's having that educational conversation with the client as well, saying, I know you're saying you want an admin, but it really sounds more like you're looking for, you know, an operations manager, and just partnering. It really comes down to partnering. And you hear me say that word all the time, and it's all over my website. Any verbiage I use, I always use the word partner, because that is really our goal. It's to partner with clients. It's to understand their business. It's to be able to project their hiring. And with candidates, it's to find them the right fit, but it's also to educate them on how to find the right fit, what they should be looking for, you know, what not to compromise in their must-haves versus their nice-to-haves. And it is all about follow-up. I tell my team all the time, you have to respond to emails within a couple hours. I am on everybody's email, and if I don't see responses after 2 hours, I'm pinging people. I'm like, hey guys. I sit on LinkedIn, and I get a lot of messages on LinkedIn, and I sit there and I spend a couple days a week where I'll spend like 1 to 2 hours, and I just go through my LinkedIn and respond to people. Whether it's thank you for responding, or, even happy birthday. I think I had like 1,500, because you click the happy birthday thing, or when it pops up in your feed, right? And I went through and I responded to every single one of them, because I think that's important. And I think that we really lose that touch, and we've lost that touch when it comes to sales and recruiting. And I would love to see the industry get that back.
Right. Back to some of the basics. And that's one of the things that's challenging. To my angle, I help, recruiting companies become more efficient through, automating processes. But what I think one of the biggest things that's conceived about automation is that it depersonalizes the relationship. And when you actually use it properly, it will give you more time to do the things that you're just talking about, where it's really nurturing and taking the time to build that relationship. And we use automation in a way to start those conversations, right? But I think that's what happens is there's so many people that use newer technology, whether it's automation or just another technology tool, and then it's the main goal is, well, how fast can I get to the decision maker? How fast can I get the order? How fast can I put the person in the seat? And it's like the simple shift into building a relationship, as much as it's like everybody should know that in business 101, it still seems like it's such a challenging thing to get the entire industry behind.
Well, and it's interesting when you say back to the basics, is that literally what it is. It is getting us back to the basics of how do you build those relationships. And a great testament of that with my business is that when I started my own company, I reached out to a couple of clients that were my old clients. I hadn't worked with them in 5-6 years, but I'd always kept in touch. And I let them know I started my own company, and they were the first 3 to sign contracts with me. And so it really does. I mean, you have to also want to actually build a relationship. It can't be just in touch to see what's in it for you kind of a thing. It has to be that genuine want to actually build those relationships. But I think, it's something that we've got to figure out a way to get back to. And that's what my whole business is really built around. So. Yeah,
that's amazing. That's amazing. So I know you've also written a book. What is that book about?
So I was asked to participate in a book. It's with 14 other CEO entrepreneurs, all women, certified women-owned. And we all have a chapter where we talk about our businesses and what we do, how we got into it, what's our story. And so obviously mine was talking about HR and outsourcing HR. It was on the Amazon bestseller list, which is exciting. And we're actually getting ready to launch the part 2 to that book. So there'll be more to come with that very shortly. And then in this one, I get a lot more in depth and in detail in, the market and really the benefits of outsourcing HR and how we partner with companies and how to really get the most out of it and scale your businesses.
That's awesome. How's that? Yeah. How's it been since have you been able to use that book at all for your clients? You expose any of your clients or candidates to that, or is that just a whole separate thing?
I have to be honest, I'm really bad about it. I should totally be leveraging that as much as I possibly can, and I haven't. I know, and my publisher tells me that all the time. She's like, why aren't you posting? I mean, I don't know. I guess for me, I think that's probably another thing that's different about going from working for a corporation and working for yourself. You really have to be more of, look at me, and I've never really been like that in business, and so I need to get better at really doing that.
Yeah, it's a huge opportunity for you. I mean, it's a common thing that's, putting yourself out there, especially when you're not used to it or it's not second nature to you. It's definitely a challenge, but I think the more you do, I think the more you'll benefit from that. You've mentioned a couple of times about the certified woman-owned business. I mean, have you seen an impact from being certified woman-owned business, or is it just kind of an accolade that's there? I mean, I'm just curious to what you've seen from the actual clients and candidates and how they respond to that.
I have, and it's been really great because one, it not only gets you more exposure to clients, because there are a lot of clients right now, especially really big clients who have supplier diversity teams, and they're looking for percentage of spend towards that, obviously in the long run, it's a tax write-off. But I have actually, and a lot of it I think too with candidates, and we had the staffing industry analyst an article about us regarding this because they put us on their preferred diversity supplier list. But it gives people the understanding and the comfort level of knowing that anybody and everybody can work with you, and there are no barriers, or they don't have to be concerned about, you know, some people feel discriminated against sometimes in interviews or before interviews. And so I think it really opens them up and makes them feel a lot more comfortable. And then on the client side, like I said, we've gotten a lot more exposure to very large corporations that we would not have even had an opportunity to talk to. So I definitely think it's helped.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm always curious because I mean, I think those are obviously really important things, but I've always just been curious, like, what is the actual impact on the business by doing that? So that's really good feedback. I mean, being a certified man-owned business, there's not a whole lot of benefits. So,
That's right.
but
I think too, though, you really do have to be careful. I mean, there's so many different things, and it's funny. I was talking to one of my supplier diversity managers the other day, and he was even saying that, you know, in California, because I'm always, you know, I can always learn more, and I love to ask even clients, you know, what do you recommend? What are you seeing in your industry that I'm not? And so he was even saying, he said, you know, here's some really great networking opportunities or some other groups you can join. He said, but make sure that it's worth the investment that you're going to make. And that's one thing I can say is, you know, I'm certified through the WBENC, which is a very reputable organization. It's actually the #1 organization nationally to be certified, but they also, you know, you have to jump through a lot of hoops, which is good because it shows that it's a viable organization. And there are a lot out there that you can spend hundreds and thousands of dollars that you probably would not get the same type of results from.
Right.
So be smart if you're going to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really good feedback. Really good feedback. And that, you know, I think the diversity is, you know, especially state of California, you're going to, you know, tons of diversity, you know, in the state in general. And it's so important that we have people leading the charge and trying to, you know, get the equality that everybody's looking for, you know, the equal opportunity out there. So I think that's great that, you know, being a part of the women-owned business is making an impact on, you know, on your business, and people are responding to that. It's cool to hear, you know, corporations, you know, devoting a part of their funds to do, you know, to do those types of things. So, well, that's awesome. Really enjoyed sitting down chatting with you here, Suzanne. I mean, where can everybody find you if they're looking for you?
So you can, I'm on LinkedIn, and then we have our Blake Ryan page on LinkedIn. Our website is www.blakeryanconsulting.com, and I always spell it for people. It's BLAKERIAN consulting.com. And you can always reach out just directly through our website, through LinkedIn. We have a Facebook, that's at Blake Ryan Consulting LLC. We have Instagram at Blake Ryan, Twitter at Blake Ryan. So any and all social media, we're on there.
Awesome. Awesome. So make sure you go find her there. Last question. I always like to ask this one. I mean, if you could give everybody one piece of advice, you know, you've had a lot of success in the recruiting industry. You've had some success now starting your own business, you know, 11 employees within 2 years, 3 locations. I mean, that's awesome. Congratulations to you for that. I mean, what's the #1 piece of advice you can give somebody that's looking to go down that path?
You know, I would say the biggest piece of advice I can give you is to follow your dreams and make sure you're passionate about what you're doing. And when it gets really tough and you feel like you are on your knees and you're going to cry, keep going. Because I will tell you, there have been times, especially this year, where I'm like, oh my gosh, do I just get a job? What is happening? You know? Yep. But I pick myself up and I say, no, I know this is going to work. It has to work. You know, that's honestly part of the reason why I did it when I was 7 months pregnant, because there really was no option to fail at that point. So just, you know,
go all in on it.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, love the advice. Well, Suzanne, thank you again so much for being here. For those of you that are listening in the Relevant Recruiter group live with us right now, make sure to give us a like, a comment, and check Suzanne out on her social media profiles. And we will see you guys next Wednesday for our next live training. Again, Suzanne, thank you so much for hanging with me today, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you so much.